What up, guys? It's Dr. Vic, and you are listening to the Mindful Experiment. Excited to have you here, excited to have you on as we dive into something that's kind of relate in life in general. I try to take concepts of maybe what's happening in life or what's going on in the world and how you can interconnect that with yourself and how you can see that 1% and how it can overlay into different aspects of your life and all that's going on. You see, in America, we have this big polarity of things going on at the moment with presidential elections, and some news outlets are like, it's over, it's done, and then you have the other side that I didn't know that actually elections are not certified until December 14th. Well, I was like, interesting. All my life I've been looking at this, and I never knew that December 14th was actually the official date of when they certify everything to make sure to say this is who the president is. Now, I wanted to share this concept because in life, what's happening is what I've seen over the last 6, 8, 9, 10 months with COVID and things going on is a lot of times people are just listening to what mainstream media tells them. And obviously, this is more in America. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're in Europe, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, anywhere else in the world, this may not be 100% true for you just because in America, our media doesn't tell us reporting on what goes on. It tells us on what is happening and how we should look at it. So it's kind of like filtering our mind and putting us to say, well, this is what it really is, and this is how we want you to see it. And sadly, that's not journalism. Sadly, that is not sharing the truth and sharing what's really happening. You're hearing biased information, and we're seeing this across the board. I learned this at an early, I wouldn't say early age, but about 12, 15 years ago. When I started going to chiropractic school, I started to see how the medical system and how mainstream media was very biased in sharing things. And I always felt I was on the other side because I always shared the other side of the story. And it was always fascinating that if I wasn't sharing the story that was being shared to everybody, that all of a sudden I was now being in this place where it came to this point where I was, how valid was I really? Why would the mainstream media lie in XYZ? And I'm not saying they lie. I just think they fabricate things in their own bias. Now, I'm sharing this with you because in your life, no matter what you're doing, no matter what profession you're in, no matter what career you're in, no matter what you're doing in life, okay, teacher, student, entrepreneur, career person, tradesperson, stay-at-home mom, it doesn't matter, right? This principle I'm going to share with you is universal. And what that is too many times in life, we're told what to do, right? As society, we like to be part of the herd. Herd mentality is what it's called. And so, like, for example, if people, this is the theory of this is what things are like, or this is the experience, we all want to share our experiences and kind of be in that same realm. We want to make sure we're sharing and understanding the same thing. And what happens is that in that process, it's very easy to become what they call a sheep. Now, don't take offense to this. I'm going to explain what a sheep is, and so you can understand the concept of it, and then how you can make sure that you're not doing that. I would do that. And sheep's a little harsh, to be honest. It's just, I would say not following your authentic self. I would say something like not following the truth within, not putting your own awareness and your experience in it, dimming your light, not letting your soul express itself. I can go on and on. I have a lot of metaphors with this. So sheep is a very harsh word. I'm just using it because it's used a lot. And so I keep seeing it across social media platforms, many different people. I've even had patients bring it up, and I was like, interesting. I gotta, bring this to a certain perspective. So a sheep, what that means is that you take information from mainstream or news, whatever, and you accept it as truth. You can see this in career, right? I did this. As a chiropractor, I always thought this is what success was. And so I modeled successful chiropractors in the essence of what I thought successful chiropractors were, right? And so I never judged it. I didn't criticize it. I just did, okay? That's a sheep mentality. Even my dog in the background agrees to that. It's a sheep type mentality where I'm just accepting what is. I'm being spoon fed and being told. I'm not seeing the other side. I'm not challenging. I'm not critically thinking. I'm not putting my experience on it. I'm not trying to figure out how it's going to work for me. At the end of the day, what it ends up being is just I'm accepting what is and I'm moving forward. At that point though, you become a product of the person or the thing you're following and not being a product of you. Okay, you lose your light, or you lose that beauty, you lose that essence. Okay, and so many times I see people trying to follow someone else to get to a certain level just to be a product of them, the other person. And yeah, here, do this step-by-step process, right? Follow these 5 steps and I'll make you successful. Great. You get the 5 steps, you become successful, living life, living large, loving what you're doing. How much is that you though? Right? And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but eventually there comes a point you got to turn it to make it you. You got to shift and challenge the stigma and so forth. And the stigma, the group consciousness, and how you're going to shift gears. This is why I'm not a big component of groups. I'm part of groups, but I just share my insight to the group, and I do what I believe is right through my experiences, knowledge that eventually turns into wisdom, and I'll utilize those principles. Sometimes I go against the grain, and that's fine for me because I want to be me. I want to be as much as I can authentically. Okay. And it's one of the things in life that you want to be very aware of how you're focusing on what you're listening to, information you're taking in. Are you taking it in as truth, or are you taking it in from an observer perspective and saying, this is interesting. What do I like about it? And how do I want to take that info and put this in my life and see how it plays for me? Right. And that's where you become more of taking control and seeing what works for you. In my coaching, when I work with one-on-one clients, in my group coaching sessions, my online classes, I'm always working with individuals to not tell them what to think. I'm very against that. What to think type of thinking is like being a sheep. Here's what you do. Here's the step-by-step process. You do this, you're golden, right? And that's a lot of outside in mentality. And that we got to go to the inside out. And what inside out looks like is going to be the perspective of inside out mentality is knowing how to think for yourself, knowing how to take something, process it, and make it yours in some way, shape, or form. Put your imprint on it. And I love being a chiropractor because I learned this over time with chiropractors. Chiropractors are very unique in this way. They're very unique in the essence of they share what chiropractic means to them. They share how chiropractic is the essence of them. And we call this the art perspective of chiropractic. We have the science and then we have the philosophy, but then there's the art. And this is what makes chiropractors vastly unique in their own way. And I learned this over time because I had to cultivate my own way of doing things to understand how I wanted to express chiropractic to the world, how I saw chiropractic, how I saw it affecting the body with science and philosophy to mix into that to make sure that I can express it the way Dr. Vic Manzo would do it. Okay. Now, I'm not saying my way is the best way. By all means, I'm not. I'm not comparing it to someone else. All I'm comparing it is to me. It's the same thing I teach my patients where I tell them, when you go through this journey of chiropractic, you can't compare this with anyone else but yourself. It's your individual experience. And it's kind of hard because people be like, well, my score was this. What's the average? What do people normally experience when they're in this score? And I'm like, I can't answer that. Because that score, when we do certain testing in our office, that stuff, the x-rays and the neural testing I do and everything else, I'm like, that is you. That's it. I can get the same, I can line up 100 people, all the same scores, all the same things, everything with a phone, 100 different aspects, 100 different ways it's affecting their life. And so that's the uniqueness, and that's the uniqueness within you. Okay, I can take this from a biological standpoint. I share this in my book called Rediscover Your Greatness, where I talk about how in your microbiome, the gut, your probiotics, the good bacteria in your gut, you actually have 500 to 1,000 strains that are unique to nowhere else in this world. 500 strains to 1,000 that are unique to you, that are in you, that no one else has in this world. So that's the beauty and uniqueness of you. So we got to stop following what we hear. I'm not saying it's okay to take it. I listen to stuff and I'll be like, interesting. But I'm always on the observer aware side where I'm taking it and going, all right, How is that true? Do I need to do more research? What's my intuition telling me? How does that feel? And I start feeling it out, and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. Something's not right. So then I'm going to start investigating that. And I want to know why it doesn't feel right. So I'm going to start looking to see if there's clues that tell me why I'm feeling that way. And then I'll get information and I'll see it. And I'll say, okay, great. I got one side and the other. The problem with most people in today's world is we're so information based that it's all here. And the problem is when you look for things through this side from the mind instead of the heart, what happens is you're easily persuaded. Because all they have to do is share something with you in a very unique way to trick the mind, because the mind's easily tricked. And all of a sudden, you'll see it in a certain way that maybe they want you to see it in. They can use fear. There's so many mechanisms that can get you to shut down your critical thinking, and fear is the biggest one. Just look at COVID. Look how the political, certain governments in the United States, it's not the United States doing this, but it's certain governors and Cook County, that's where I'm in Chicago. County leaders and so forth and mayors of cities are running that in the United States and choosing how to do it. And they get stuck into the fear, maybe an agenda, and they start to go ahead and put these lockdowns and all these other things. And this happens in other countries too. The big fear that comes out, instead of critically looking at things from a different perspective, critically seeing something from a different perspective. And this is what happens in life. We allow fear to take in, and our critical thinking gone, just like that. And now all of a sudden, you're easily just being spoon-fed whatever is going to help you from a brain perspective to give you the survival of what you're seeking, to help calm, right? Think about when you're ever in a stressful situation. Let's say you had a long day, or the kids are stressing you out and they're pushing you beyond your limits, or your boss, or work, or entrepreneur, as a business owner. We have those days where it's just like, man, can we just take a break? I'm tired of the stress, right? And what do? You go outside in. I have a drink. Maybe it's recreational drugs. Maybe it's XYZ, whatever that is, going to be a workaholic, maybe binge eating, working out. There's many factors. As humans, we're all addicted to something. And so you go there and you're looking for that escape, that break, okay? And nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all need them. But it's one of the things where, what about, tapping in and looking at the perspective of your life and realizing how can we really focus on getting more centered and shifting the gears on this? How can we get more and an aspect to look at this and say, you know what? Let me take a moment and let me look at the full picture of things. Let me see how this really is. And we have to do that in some way, shape, or form. It really shifts perspective and allow us to thrive and grow in all that we're doing. And so this is where you want to analyze things. I always say, never take anything as truth. I always take things as a grain of salt. I tell my patients the same thing when I'm working with them and sharing health tips or sharing something with them. I'm like, don't believe me. Take it as a grain of salt and do your own research. Because I want to empower them, but I want to give them an insight to look at something in a different perspective. And that's why I say, do your own research so you can see that. So the key aspect out of this, if you're going to grasp anything out of this episode, is that understand that you always have a choice. Understand that if you're not being actively involved, mindful, being aware, being the observer, taking things in, right? If you're just saying that's truth and this is what they said on the news, so that's truth and that's it, I'm moving forward, you will always be a puppet. You'll always be a sheep to anything. That's just the news. Now we can go in this again, any aspect. And guys, I'm sharing some of the popular words that are being used. I say puppet a lot because I know for me, that's how it was. I remember I had a coach tell me, stop looking at your numbers and thinking that's how you're successful or not successful, because I wasn't getting to the numbers I wanted to. So I thought I wasn't successful in my business. And she said, you can't determine your value based on your numbers. Your value is determined on how you see it. And it took a long time for me to break out of this thinking, because to me, growing up, money, success, seeing, those types of things, that happens only with that process. And it was a few years ago I made the change to where I started to go, you know what? I'm successful based upon the value and input of how I help individuals. I'm successful based on the kiddos that I'm helping get off drugs. I'm successful for helping them, the mom or the dad or an individual suffering with a chronic illness, and we're able to give them a better quality of life. And I started changing my belief systems and my value systems and how I saw things. I started to say, heck with all that I've learned. Nothing wrong with what I learned. But I was tired of the modeling and the being a byproduct of someone else, and I wanted to be a byproduct of me. And so all of a sudden I became that. And I started to, now in my life, when I'm learning something, I take it in. Like if I read a book, I take what I want to get out of that and I'll apply it in my life and put my little stamp on it where I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to learn from it. And here's what I want to take from it, how I'm going to implement it in my life. And so this is what I recommend to you. Take time to take power in your life. Have faith in yourself. You're more powerful than you can ever imagine. Stop feeling that you need to have something else. And if you're not that type, then great. That's awesome. You're ahead of the curve. The reason why I say that is because for me, it was always the opposite. I always felt like I needed something outside. And it was about 5, 6 years ago where I started to see I didn't. I started to all of a sudden stop reading. And I was someone who needed to read books. I needed YouTube videos. I needed workshops. I needed some seminars. I needed stuff to keep feeding me. And it came a point now in my life where I think this year alone, we're in November, and I've read only 15, 16 books. And that's kind of one of the lowest I've done in a very long time. And it's okay. But I've learned stuff through the books. I've learned concepts. I've learned tools, how I implement it into my life so that I can grow and expand. And it's one of the things where I go based on my intuition. And that's the kind of thing I was trying to tell you guys before about how the mind gets tricked, but the heart never does. Feel. When you listen to something, feel, right? And you got to keep in check because the mind's going to play games. And this is a process that just doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. There's no written out process. You're not going to get that from me. It's more of you just got to go in and evaluate these things and feel them. And once you feel them, you get used to the feeling, you get used to knowing what's good, what isn't, what resonates with you, what doesn't, what resonates with your value system, what doesn't resonate with your value system. It starts to be a game changer. So make sure you make those choices. Make sure you make anything in your life. Make sure you choose things that are going to be more impactful and empowering for you. And lastly, if I can add, spirit duality coming up. I've been talking about this the last couple of weeks. I've been sharing it all through social media outlets and email blasting and so much more. Check this workshop out. It is amazing. It's a virtual event that I'm a part of that we're sharing. I think it's 24 speakers sharing their spiritual journey. During this time and everything that's been going on in 2020, this is something that I highly recommend checking. We have it in the show notes. Click, get your free tickets. There's 4 to 5 day virtual event. Then if you're inspired, there's also a bonus that they're doing for a massive, the 35% discount they're actually offering right now. For the tickets, to go ahead and purchase. There's a paid event after, and you can listen to some of the speakers. They're going to be sharing a workshop. I'm one of those who is sharing a workshop on how you can understand the difference of light and dark and how you can really, no matter what situation you face in life, I'm going to walk you through some questions. I'm going to give you some ideas and some step-by-steps that you can go ahead and utilize to truly grasp and understand, no matter what challenges you face in life, how can you utilize tools and questions to truly help you see things from a different perspective so that you can create the story that you want it to be and then really thrive and expand in your life. So I want to thank you guys as always again. And one last thing, if I didn't do this, we have a lot going on. November 14th, I am launching or I'm releasing, it'll be available to the public, our online life mastery course. That's right, folks. It is a 5-week course that is going to teach you the tips and tricks of what I've learned in 10 years of how to master your life. I'm going to be sharing spiritual laws, quantum physics, universal laws, many different principles on how you can understand how to play the game in life and to really thrive and become a master of your own life. So you can go ahead, link is below. You can already register now for it. The content will not be started to be available until November 14th. So go check it out. Any questions you have, you can email me at drvic@empoweryourla.com. That's all the commercials I have for today. I appreciate you guys. If this is your first time listening, please subscribe as that really helps out the podcast. It really gets this message out there. If you enjoyed this episode, please pay it forward by sharing it with someone that you know who can benefit from this. And as always, I appreciate you guys. I'll be talking to you all next week.